You're listening to Language Nerds Do Earth, the podcast about linguistics, culture, travel, and how they're all connected. Now, it's time for your language nerd hosts. One in China, one in Spain. It's Patrice and Rachel.
Hi everyone, I'm Patrice.
And I'm Rachel.
And welcome to Language Nerds Do Earth.
This is our 7th episode.
Lucky number 7.
Our topic today is bilingual cities. And we have some special guests talking about some of their experiences. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, definitely. We got some really great help for this episode.
So we're going to first talk a little bit about some language news. Then we're going to take a little tour of the world and look at some bilingual cities. And then we're going to hear our Lost in Translation moment.
Shout out to AJ, who left a comment on our episode 5 this week. He said, fantastic post. Your post is very helpful to me as I love traveling, and I have started to go green to make my small contribution towards saving the environment. I was planning a trip and found exciting ecotourism destination. Keep sharing such posts. So episode 5 was about eco-friendly travel. So thank you, AJ, for your comment.
Yes, super nice. And
keeps us going.
Yeah, and I can't wait to do more content like that too.
Yeah, that was awesome. So first, let's talk about our language news before we get into the meat of the episode.
You want to kick that off for us?
Yeah, sure. So I live in Shenzhen, which is in southern China. It's actually a huge city. The major metropolitan area is, I think, 23 million people. So it's almost as big as Seoul. Yeah, it's huge. But I also am right across the border from Hong Kong. So the Chinese government created this special economic zone in 1979 to start opening up China to the world. But it's interesting because it's a new city in China. Obviously, it's only 38 years old.
Okay.
So here, the common language is Mandarin. But in the rest of southern China, the common language is, for the most part, Cantonese. And that includes Hong Kong. So a little background for you on Hong Kong. In the late 1800s, it was taken over by the British as a result of the Opium Wars in China. It's really, really interesting history. And so it's been officially a bilingual city for a long time. Hong Kong was given over to China, but they said, okay, it's going to remain a capitalist zone for 50 years. That was one of the conditions of giving Hong Kong back to China.
Right.
So it's kind of an in-between country right now. It's independent, although it's kind of transitioning into being owned by China. There are a lot of people who think it should be its own country, but anyway, it's a huge port city, so it's very international. So the two official languages of Hong Kong are Cantonese and English. And 88% of Hong Kongers speak Cantonese. The island celebrates Chinese New Year and Christmas with equal levels of enthusiasm.
Okay.
So, and then most people in the service industry have at least a competent level of English. So taxi drivers, salespeople, and those in the tourism industry.
Yeah, so around 1997, there was only about less than 25% of the population that spoke Mandarin, and that is now closer to 50%. So I guess the question comes, is Mandarin replacing Cantonese? Should it replace it? And is it replacing it? Because it seems that a lot of parents prefer their children to be schooled in Mandarin.
Yeah, to make them more competitive in China.
Right, which it makes sense. So people are using Cantonese less as the language of education.
Yeah, and so there's basically this debate now in Hong Kong, like, should we switch over to Mandarin because we're becoming more part of China? But then there are people who want Hong Kong to be independent, and they are saying, no, we should keep to Cantonese. So it's kind of this interesting struggle now that people in Hong Kong are starting to view Mandarin as kind of taboo.
Yeah.
We actually have a guy from Hong Kong who was nice enough to give us a little clip on speaking Cantonese, English, and Mandarin.
Yeah.
This is my friend that I met from Hong Kong who lives in Shenzhen. Let's see what Ray has to say.
Hello, I'm Wei, a Hong Kong guy, and my native language is Cantonese. I grew up and speaking Cantonese. I can say Cantonese and Mandarin both are Chinese. We both can written by Chinese character. However, Mandarin and Cantonese will have little bit difference by the grammar and different pronunciation. So actually our official language by speaking would be Cantonese, but maybe in writing we can say it's Mandarin. For me, if I would interact with people, usually use Cantonese, and secondly in English, and thirdly Mandarin. I speak Cantonese when I'm from trial in school, and I was more comfortable to expressing myself by Cantonese. My parents also speak in Cantonese. If I speak in Cantonese, I would talk more. However, if I speak in English or Mandarin, I will talk less. But for thinking, if I think in English, I think I will be more logical, I think.
So he brings up a really interesting point about being more logical in English.
Yeah.
Have you heard that before?
I have heard that, and I've heard that used as kind of a language superiority thing as well. So it's interesting that a non-native speaker would consider himself more logical in English.
I've never heard it used as a language superiority thing, but I have heard that people tend to be less emotional in their second language because they have less emotional ties to the words.
Yeah.
So, like, people make more rational decisions if they're working in a language that's not their native tongue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ray, for sending us that little clip about your experience using Cantonese and Mandarin. It was a really good explanation of the differences. And I know that it's a lot harder when it's not your native tongue, so we really appreciate you doing that for us.
Yeah, it was really, really interesting, and I didn't know that it was written with the same characters, so that's super fascinating.
It's so interesting, actually. All over China, there are like over 200 languages, and they all use the same writing system. All of the characters are the same, which is why it makes so much sense to have the character system. Because Mandarin, even though it's the common language of China, it wasn't always that way. It was just kind of decided within the last century that everybody was going to use Mandarin as the common language.
Right.
And so before, I guess, common communication was over script, which everybody could read.
Cool.
So that is a really good way to bring us into the main topic of the show today, which is bilingual cities. Before we get into our little world tour, we wanted to talk a little bit about bilingualism.
Yeah, so bilingualism has several benefits, including reducing the risk of having a stroke, making the recovery for a stroke quicker, delaying the onset of dementia, as well as it just opens you up and lets you experience the world in a variety of different languages.
Yeah, we've talked about how when you speak a different language and you learn a different language, you also learn and experience that culture, which comes with a whole history of tradition and emotion. And we talked a little bit about linguistic relativity in our first episode too. Bilingualism is a really fascinating thing.
Right, and I guess we should define being bilingual, which... so you need to learn both languages before the age of 12 to be considered truly bilingual. So, who's our first guest?
So, first we were gonna go to Miami.
Miami's in the south of Florida. and it's got about 5.5 million people in the urban area, which is the 7th most populous urban area in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And interestingly, it's 70% Hispanic, and about 70% of this population only speaks Spanish at home, compared to just 22.7% of English speakers. Mm. And of the Hispanic population, about 34% is Cuban. So we know that a lot of Cubans came there during the 60s and the 70s. And it's also called the capital of Latin America, apparently.
That's pretty cool. We were talking about El Paso, too, kind of when we were preparing for this episode. And it's funny because Miami is a bilingual city and El Paso is basically a bilingual city as well, but they're two totally different atmospheres in each city. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I actually haven't been to Miami. Have you?
I've only been for like one night when I was going to the Florida Keys.
Oh, okay. Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. But I was also like 16, so...
So not really old enough to have a good time in Miami.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah. So basically what we did was we asked some of our friends from all over the world to give us kind of a feel for what it was like to grow up in these cities.
Mm-hmm. So the first one is by my friend Marla. We studied our teaching course in Spain together, and we actually then lived together for like 2 months.
Hi, my name is Marla. I was born and raised in Miami, and both of my parents are Puerto Rican. My native languages are both English and Spanish. The languages of where I grew up are predominantly English and Spanish. English is the official language, and Spanish is the unofficial language. But people that visit here would most definitely say that Spanish is our official language. Because if you don't know Spanish, it might be a little hard to navigate or to have daily interactions with people, given that a lot of people that do live here come from other places, they're transplants, and sometimes they haven't had the time to learn English or know that they can get by with only speaking Spanish. I definitely prefer in business to speak English. I don't feel comfortable saying those things in Spanish. I feel that a lot of things get lost in translation. And at the end of the day, it's like how I make money. Also, I don't like giving directions in Spanish. I feel like I would definitely have people get lost. The two languages I spoke at home as a child were both English and Spanish. Both of my parents speak both. And I would definitely say, though, we did lean towards speaking English. And I guess that's just because the majority of my schooling was done in English. But my parents did make it a point that they wanted us to know both languages. In school, the majority of time, I only spoke English, except for the 1 hour that we had of Spanish class. And that was only from kindergarten to 5th grade, that was required. Most of my friends did speak the same language as me, which is both English and Spanish. We did choose, though, to speak in English most often, just because it's like what we saw like on TV, at school, what we read. So yeah, we definitely did choose to speak in English, but there was obviously some kids that did come from other countries at a later time, and they didn't know how to speak English at that point. So I would speak my little broken Spanish at the time, and I really did notice a divide, though, between students if they didn't speak one of the language that the other person didn't necessarily understand. I'm definitely more comfortable speaking and writing in English. It's just the way that I, when I think, it's in English, so sometimes to directly translate that into Spanish is difficult. My parents both speak, like I said, English and Spanish. And so I do tend to speak to my mom, though, only in English. And I've noticed that when I speak to my dad, who, my parents are divorced, I choose to speak to him in Spanish. And now that I think of it, I feel that that reason might be because I feel that my dad is more comfortable speaking in Spanish. He's not shy about it, but I also see it as an opportunity to connect with him more, given that I don't always get to see him. So do I behave differently when I speak Spanish? 100%. Yes, I feel different. I feel that my personality definitely does change. I don't feel as confident. I would even say that I'm more conservative, which I am by no means when I'm speaking English. I obviously been feeling more comfortable now speaking Spanish, so I definitely try to make myself more playful. But my jokes and everything don't exactly translate the best when I say them in Spanish. So my personality definitely it takes a shift when I switch over to Spanish. But really within the last maybe 2 years, not just the work setting, but I try to speak more Spanish when I know that someone that's their native language, just because it's just, I guess I see the importance of speaking another language, and ultimately it's just another way to connect with human beings, and there's just so many different cool things that we can learn from each other's culture and just the difference in tone and language. It's just really interesting, and I definitely need to continue my education in Spanish, and answering these questions for you definitely made me think of how I use language on a daily basis and the things that I want to change.
Okay, so that was awesome. Thank you, Marla.
Yes, thank you.
So growing up in Miami, it sounds like she used both a lot, but more English than Spanish.
Yeah. And I guess that makes sense, as English is the official language. So she would have, of course, she went to school in English, and
right.
That's the language that she developed a bit more formally.
Right, yeah. Although, actually, I've heard the U.S. doesn't have an official language.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, but there is kind of this big push to get non-native speakers of English speaking English, right? So it makes sense that she would learn it in school, but it's good that she was required to take Spanish also in Miami.
Yeah, and I liked how she talked about the difference between the language she speaks with her mom and her dad.
Yeah.
Which is very interesting. And it's kind of one of those things, I think, that once you develop a relationship with somebody in one language, it's kind of hard to change.
Definitely, yeah. I think we'll see that with more of our friends. Mm-hmm. You might have had this in Spanish too. When you start a relationship with somebody in one language, it's kind of weird when you go to the next one that you also have in common.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah. It's not even a spoken thing. It's just kind of a mental block. We have this relationship in one language.
In a different language, yeah.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Well, that brings us to Barcelona, which also is a bilingual city, obviously. But in Barcelona, there's Catalan and Spanish.
So Catalan it's related to Spanish. So basically, when I've been to Catalonia, I can understand some things that are written.
Yeah.
And it sounds kind of like, if you squint with your ears, it kind of sounds similar to Spanish.
I've never heard that term, squint with your ears. I really like it.
I kind of made it up, but
yeah.
And it's similar to French as well, I think, right?
Yeah. So Catalonia is in the northeast of Spain, so that means it's on the French border. And actually, some people in France also speak Catalan, but when French became the official language of France in the early 20th century, Catalan was kind of outlawed. So for the most part, it's spoken in Spain. Mm-hmm. It was actually outlawed under Francisco Franco, but because it was the language of the bourgeois, it managed to survive the time that he was in power, which is another entire discussion in itself. It's so interesting. I actually studied in Barcelona, and it's an autonomous community of Spain that wants to be its own country.
Yeah, so especially in the last year, it's been a pretty hot topic.
Yeah.
because they actually did a referendum to be independent. So it was like a whole mess between, well, still is, between the Spanish government and the Catalonian government, because they did this illegal referendum. And
right. According to the Spanish, it's illegal, yeah. And so it's kind of frozen the Spanish government.
It's something we're going to have to pay attention to.
Yeah. So in Barcelona, there are 1.6 million people in the city and 5.4 million in the major metropolitan area. Like I said, Catalan is a mix of Spanish and French, so I always use the example of the word for exit. In Spanish, it's salida, and in French, it's sortir, and then in Catalan, it's sortida. So it's kind of like a perfect mix. It just kind of gives you an idea. So my friend Judith, thank you so much for sending us a little experience. I kind of just wrote her out of the blue. I met her when I was studying in Barcelona. We're still friends on Facebook. So that was like almost 10 years ago that I met her. And she's actually a freelance translator now. She's a polyglot. She speaks like, is it 5, 6 different languages?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey you guys, my name is Judith and I'm from Barcelona. And in one of my native languages, my name is actually Judith. I was born in Barcelona, born and raised. And my native language, I have 2 mother tongues. It's Spanish and Catalan. Both of us, Spanish is the official language in Spain, and Catalan it's co-official. And in fact, at home we speak Spanish since my father does not speak it. So my mother decided not to speak it at home, but we can do it. I mean, now he does understand, but when we were, a child, my mother decided not to do that. So not a big point here, not a big issue. Anyway, so I learned Catalan when I was really, really little. I was in, I think it was kindergarten, but I already heard of that because, here we spoke both. And one of my aunts, she speaks Catalan basically, so I knew about that. So I speak both languages. I mean, for instance, with some of my friends, I speak Spanish. When with others, I speak Catalan, or especially with my best friend, we spoke a mix between them. Especially, we speak more Catalan, but we tend to mix it. And for instance, with my partner, we speak both. I mean, I can say a sentence in Spanish, and the answer can be in Catalan or Spanish. I mean, I don't know, it depends on, the situation or how the other person feels. So I can speak in both languages fluently. I have no issue, but personally, I speak better Spanish because I feel in Spanish, even though I can feel in Catalan, but it's more natural for me to speak in Spanish. In fact, when I get really mad, I speak Spanish. So in school, I learn Catalan, but in school we can learn and speak both freely, completely. Normally it depends on the language of the teacher. I mean, if they speak Catalan, you tend to speak in Catalan, or the other way around. But I mean, you can choose. I mean, if you feel more comfortable speaking one of those, you can speak it freely. Only in case it's, if it's Spanish class, you are supposed, in fact, to speak that language. And like in English class, I mean, we are supposed to speak English. So it makes no sense to speak the other language. As I said, my mom, she was born also in Barcelona, born and raised. And my father, he's not from Barcelona area, he's from near Madrid. So he didn't speak it, but, he learned and he can speak it. But, I speak in Spanish with them. I can speak to them in Catalan, but it could be weird, as I tend to say, when I learn someone, it's not only I learn the person, but I learn their language. So if I begin the relationship in Spanish, I tend to speak to them in Spanish, even though they are bilingual. But, it's kind of weird here. We understand each other, because sometimes I spoke about that with some friends. It's like, I cannot change the language. And I can hear a friend speaking Spanish or Catalan, and maybe with me, they speak other languages with me. I mean, it's not a big deal for us. I mean, we can switch languages really, really easily. So I can say I behave differently in those languages because now I'm a polyglot, so I behave differently in each language I learn. But basically, I can say that I'm more loud. Can I say that? Or louder in Spanish than in Catalan? Because in my opinion, Catalan it's a softer language, and Spanish it's really, active, really loud. You can say, when we Spaniards go around, we are easy to be noticed. I mean, you can say, oh, they are Spaniards because, our volume. Yeah, in fact, I don't know how to say that, but in each language I speak, I know I'm the same person, but I know my behavior and maybe my attitude or my personality slightly changes. Yeah, to be honest, yes. I mean, even though now I'm speaking in English, I'm not behaving like I would in Spanish because I would be really loud, and I tend to swear a lot in Spanish. But I'm not swearing in English because, it's not my mother tongue, even though I'm really fluent and I'm really good at it. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the way it is. Anyway, guys, that's my experience. Here in Barcelona, we speak both languages. There is no problem at all. We switch from one to the other. And, the main point is that we communicate, don't we?
Thank you so much for your recording. Very thoughtful.
Yeah, that was so different from Miami, too.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked how she was talking about how in school they can basically choose whatever they feel more comfortable in. It sounds like it's a lot more seamless in Barcelona.
Yeah.
Switching between the two languages.
Yeah, and I also thought it was interesting how she talked about the relationship thing. So with her parents, she doesn't speak Catalan, even though they speak it.
Yeah.
Because that's not the language that they're accustomed to in their relationship.
Yeah.
And with friends as well.
Right. Although with some friends, it sounds like she can go kind of either way, but not everybody.
Right.
That was cool. I really liked how she said, I feel in Spanish.
Yes. That's very interesting. And similar to something that Marla said, I think, that she feels more comfortable expressing some things in English.
Right.
And I'm sure that emotions probably fall under that.
Yeah, exactly. And Judith also said that she swears a lot more in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
She's louder, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how she changes her behavior.
Right. Okay, so next on our list we have Hyderabad, India, which is in the southern part of India. And if you haven't heard of it, of course, it's another enormous city that a lot of people haven't heard of. It's got 6.81 million people, and it's known as the City of Pearls because it's the chief producer of natural pearls in the world. And it's the fourth most populous city in India.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought this was also really interesting. Bollywood is like a huge film industry in India.
Of course.
Yeah. And then the second biggest film industry is called Tollywood.
Okay.
Because it's Telugu is the native language in Hyderabad. So it's produced there.
Very cool.
I talked to Swetha. I actually met her on Saturday night at a party. And we both had a few glasses of wine, and then I interviewed her. So there's a little bit of background noise in this one. We tried to get away from it, and we're both kind of goofy. So
Okay, so just start off by maybe introducing yourself.
So I'm Swetha. I'm from southern part of India, from Andhra Pradesh, called Hyderabad, and I'm student in Peking University. HSBC Business School Finance Master Student.
So, what are your native languages?
My native language is Telugu, but I can speak English, Hindi, and also Tamil.
Okay.
Yeah.
And What are the languages of the place where you grew up? And are they official or unofficial languages?
So I grew up most of my life in Andhra Pradesh, where the official language is Telugu, but our language of education and assessment is completely in English.
Okay.
So Telugu, our mother tongue, is just a part of our course, but most of our courses are definitely in English. And we also learn Hindi, which is one of the official languages in India.
Yeah, and you were saying that even though Hindi is an official language of India, you don't speak it very much.
That's true. Unfortunately, I'm from southern part where we do not usually use Hindi in our daily life because we use English or our mother tongue, like everyday life, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm like from the northern part, I will be using more Hindi in my daily life.
Yeah. And so like when you interact with people in your hometown in India, do you prefer certain types of interactions to be in English and certain interactions to be in what is it?
Telugu.
Sorry, I keep forgetting.
Yeah, so definitely I love to speak in Telugu when I'm in province because I love it.
Oh, really?
It sounds very sweet. It's called, by the way, Telugu is known as Italian of the East.
No way.
Really. Believe me, you can search in Google. It's called Italian of the East, and it's the most spoken language in southern part of India.
Wow.
After Hindi. So, yeah.
Give a sample.
Yeah, give us a sample of Telugu.
Namaste.
I know that one.
That's Hindi. That's the
that's a
same.
cop.
Yeah.
Okay. I say
Say
I
it.
love you, okay?
Okay.
Right. Nenu ninu premistunnanu.
That's beautiful.
Isn't
Wait, I can do that. Nenu premistunnanu.
That's perfect. She's the only one who said it perfect. Oh my god. Really? Like some people will be like nenu nanu nenu ninu. What?
That's really pretty.
Yeah. It's like nenu ninu premistunnanu. It has a completion of the sounds, you know,
Yeah.
unlike other languages where Chinese.
It's like a
it's all-
circle.
Yeah. It's a completion. Like it sounds good. It's really sweet. Really, it's sweet. Believe me, it's sweet.
That's so cool. So when you're at home, you prefer to speak in Telugu.
Definitely.
Okay.
I don't like who show off just by using English, even with because it's the only way you can use your mother tongue. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And so when you were at home, obviously you spoke Telugu.
Definitely,
As a
100%
kid.
Telugu. Yeah.
Okay. And so when did you speak English usually then?
Actually, to be frank, I learned English first and then Telugu later.
No way. So
It's-
English is your native
Because
tongue?
the thing is that when we go to the school, the kindergarten, everything, the complete education, assessment, and everything will be in English. And then my parents like they are afraid that I couldn't learn my mother tongue, so they shifted my school to a school where we have Telugu as a mandatory language. So
Okay, come over
that's
here.
how I learned my mother tongue.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you only spoke English for the most part
And
until
yes,
you were 8.
I can speak. The thing is, I cannot read, I cannot write my mother
Ah.
tongue since I was 8, like
Okay.
up to 8. And after that, like I can read. Now I can read, write, and everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And so so most of your friends speak the same languages as you?
In my province,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
they are like maybe they watch more TV series in Hindi, so they are fluent in Hindi. But I hate TV series. Oh my god, they are so emotional. So maybe
Yeah.
that's why I cannot speak fluent Hindi, but I can understand. I can speak
Yeah.
basic Hindi. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Are you more comfortable expressing yourself in Telugu or English, do you think?
You need my frank opinion, right?
Yeah.
Right. So I think Telugu.
Uh-huh.
But some of the scientific words, I don't know how to express in my mother tongue because I really don't know.
Maybe
Like
you don't have them.
microorganisms. What do you say in my mother tongue? I don't know because I learned them in English.
Yeah.
So I know only regular usage of my mother tongue and
Yeah.
all the official educational and scientific words in English. So I'm more comfortable in English maybe.
Expressing yourself?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Like, because, I mean, because...
Scientifically English, but natural way maybe Telugu.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So maybe
I
like,
hate this movie. You'd say that in Telugu.
Yeah.
so like emotionally.
Emotionally Telugu,
Oh, okay.
scientifically English.
Wow, okay. That's cool.
I think this is the case of most of the Indians.
Okay, like if you want to speak
their
in
mother
science.
tongue from their province, like emotionally, and
Uh-huh.
also like scientifically, they can just express themselves in English.
What about socially, do you think?
It depends. Like in the southern part, we socially express ourselves in English, and northern part in Hindi.
Okay.
Because they always wanted to speak in Hindi. Because
Okay.
Northern part is completely different from southern part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really different.
Okay, so your parents, they speak the same native languages as you?
Yes, they are from the same province. We just marry in our own province because of the language barrier. Most of them, I'm generalizing it. Yeah,
Okay,
99%.
So marriage is within the province
Marriage
usually.
is the most complicated thing when.
Okay, so tell me about the marriage process. in
Oh my
India.
god, don't ever get me started.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna brief it, okay, right?
Okay.
So we're gonna marry only within our own caste. So
And
our
your own
probability,
province, yeah.
yeah. So it should be Hindus. I mean, when it comes to me, I'm talking.
Yeah.
It should be in Hindus. It should be from my own province. That means same language. It should be from my own caste. See my probability. What's my probability? 0.001. It's so stupid.
Yeah. Do your languages influence the relationship you have with your parents?
Some of my friends, the parents are from different province, so in such a case, they want the children to learn both of the languages. Like, but they want to maintain.
Yeah.
They want to, they keep their traditions ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in such a case, they learn like mother's tongue and also like father's mother tongue. Whatever.
Right, and then English, and then Telugu.
But fortunately, my parents are from same province, so I don't have to
Yeah.
deal with mainly languages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so one more question. Does your personality slightly alter when you switch between languages?
I think it's not only about me, it's everywhere in the world. Language is a culture, it's
Yeah.
a personality, it's what you are. Like, it defines what you are.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, right? So, when I'm in India, I'm a different person, definitely. When I'm
Yeah.
in China, I'm a different person. Be a Roman in Rome, that's what I think. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Swetha. It was so nice to meet you on Saturday night.
Yes, thank you so much. That was such an interesting take on the languages in the southern part of India.
Yeah, that was really cool. I thought it was so interesting how she said that she hardly ever uses Hindi.
Yeah, I was surprised by that for sure.
She prefers English when she's talking about scientific things, kind of like Marla and Judith. She prefers to use Telugu as her kind of emotional language. So.
Yeah, I like that a lot, and that she likes the beauty of the language as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was also, I was surprised that that was not her first language.
Yeah.
Telugu.
It sounds, I think I misunderstood actually. I think like she spoke it at home, but in school she was only reading and writing in English. And then when she was 8, her parents transferred her to a school where she learned to read and write in Telugu. Which
That
props
makes
to her
sense.
parents. Yeah. But yeah, she talked a lot about how important it is to maintain the traditions from her parents of Telugu too.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of an interesting parallel too between the Hindi, Telugu versus Cantonese and Mandarin,
Yeah.
like we were talking about at the beginning.
Right.
These multilingual countries, and how do you navigate those divides?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So this next one is a town called East London in South Africa. It's actually a trilingual city. It's got a population of 267,000 in the city and almost 800,000 in the major metropolitan area. It was established in 1872, and it's the only river port in South Africa because it's between 2 rivers, but it's also on the Indian Ocean coast.
very cool.
So my friends that I know here in China, Tegan and Taniell, they're 2 sisters, and so they recorded this for us. I do want to make a quick caveat. They use the terms colored and black, and colored in South African is not an offensive term. It's just a classification, and it means mixed race, so black and white versus black, which right now it doesn't matter as much, but during apartheid it was a major classification.
Right, and it determined where you were in society and who you could mix with as well. So colors with colors, blacks with blacks, whites with whites.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so let's listen to Tegan and Taniell.
Hello. Hi. I am Taniell. And I'm Tegan, and we are sisters from South Africa. We come from a little city called East London in South Africa. Right. The first question is, what is your native language? English. Our native language is English. What are the languages of the place that you grew up?
In South Africa, there are 11 official languages, but in East London, where we are from, only 3 of those languages are predominantly spoken. So it's English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa. Some people may speak Zulu, but those are the 3 main languages predominantly spoken.
Are they official or unofficial languages?
They are official languages of South Africa.
Are there parts of your city that operate more in one language or more than one?
Yes, there is. It just depends on the race of people that live in that area. So we may have some areas that are predominantly black, some that are predominantly white, some colored. So in a place, for example, where there's predominantly colored people, they will speak
more Afrikaans.
Whereas like if it's a place where it's predominantly black people, they will speak more Xhosa. So it just definitely depends on the type of people that live in a specific area.
What languages did you speak as a child at home? We spoke English. We had grandparents who were Afrikaans, but they passed away when we were really young. So we didn't speak a lot of Afrikaans. Our home language was English. In school, what languages were spoken? And did your school operate as a bilingual school?
Our school was English medium. Most schools in our city in South Africa are actually. So everything was taught in English, but we did have second languages that we could choose. So it was when we were at school, we couldn't choose. We had to do Afrikaans and we had to do conversational Xhosa. Now it's changed where children can choose their second language, but you are taught in English, but it is a bilingual school in the sense where you do learn a second language. And like we say, now that is a choice, whereas when we were at school, we had to do like a conversational Xhosa, and then we also had to do Afrikaans.
Did your parents speak the same native language as you?
Yes.
Yes, we all spoke English in our home. Do you have friends who also speak the different languages of your city?
Yeah, well, at school we had friends of different races.
So. Because we went to a school that was multicultural, we had many friends who were from different races. So they would speak also to each other, or they would speak Afrikaans and we would speak English. But they would move seamlessly through the languages. So the next question is, do they move seamlessly between the two when they are with them? They definitely do. So the Xhosa speaking children would speak Xhosa to each other and would be able to respond to an English
person in English. Yeah. So it definitely depends. But like for us, we can understand Afrikaans fluently. So if someone talks to us in Afrikaans, we can understand what they're saying. Our spoken Afrikaans isn't as great as what we can understand. And with Xhosa, it just depends. Like we can definitely pick up certain words because it's a language we've heard spoken around us our whole lives. So I would definitely not say we're fluent, but we can understand parts of the language and sort of pick up on conversation. Taniell had a friend who was fluent in Xhosa
and English. She was
a childhood friend that could speak both languages, and like she could definitely communicate between the two very easily.
So yeah, that is a little bit about our city and the languages in our city. We are definitely very much known as the Rainbow Nation. As you can tell, we have lots of different cultures and languages that are spoken between all the cultures.
Yeah, that's us. That's South Africa.
Okay. Really interesting.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that one is so different from the other ones we've heard, too.
Yeah, for sure. Just in the fact that in the city alone, there are 3 official languages.
Yeah.
Also the way that she said what language is spoken, and it depends on what neighborhood you're in.
Yeah.
What the race is, because the delineation of the language is so much based on race.
Yeah, but I like that in school, as English speakers, they learned both Afrikaans and Xhosa, which I can't do.
Yeah.
They can do it really well.
Yeah, that's really, I think that's super important too, that they learned those languages.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, thank you, ladies.
Yeah, thanks, Tegan and Taniell. That was awesome. I've talked to them a little bit about it, but I haven't really heard much, so cool.
Yes. And
well,
thank you so much to all of our wonderful friends once again.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's I know that it's a little intimidating when we approach you and we're like, "Hey, help us." But it's like, I think it's so cool to get your perspective, and it's so important, even if you feel like you're just one person. I think listening to your experiences is just invaluable.
Yeah, and I've learned so much about different perspectives about the same topic, which is just so fascinating.
Yeah, I love it. That's why we do it, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so I think we're ready for our Lost in Translation moment.
Yes. One of my favorite times.
Yeah, mine too. I love it. So this one is from Clancy in the US. Clancy, thank you so much for submitting the story. She studied abroad in Ghana, and so she's going to tell us a little bit about that experience right now.
Cool.
Hey Patrice and hey Rachel, hope you guys are doing good. I just have like a small embarrassing story from my trip in Ghana. So it was a really good experience and I learned a whole lot, and overall it was really positive, but the worst thing about it for me were the bathrooms. And so one trip in particular, we had I don't remember where we were going, but we took a tour bus somewhere, and on the way back I had to pee really bad, and so they stopped the tour bus, and then we got out and I looked around. I was like looking for the bathroom. I couldn't see anything. And then I saw like a bunch of women like kind of hovering in this, like, I guess it must have been up to my knees, but it was like a concrete square that was like up to my knees, so you could see inside of it clearly, and everyone could see it. But yeah, and there was like a trough in it, and they were all peeing in the trough. And so I was like, I really have to go, so I'm just gonna do it really quickly and then it'll be over. And so unfortunately I was wearing shorts, which was like a very horrible decision, and I learned my lesson after this experience. But so I had to like pee with shorts on. All the other women were wearing skirts, and so I just kind of like sat down on the trough like I was sitting on a chair, and I just like hover there. I was just like closing my eyes and I was peeing, and then I felt like a tap on my shoulder, and it was a woman peeing beside me, and then she like taught me how to pee, which was to squat over it instead of like sitting over it, if that makes sense. So it was just really embarrassing, like having someone how to teach you how to pee, and then like being white in a predominantly African country, and so everyone can like clearly see you, like men and women. So anyway, good story, learned my lesson.
So I actually followed up with Clancy on what she meant by like sitting versus squatting, and basically the way she explained it, I think I understand it, like a long trough, and people just kind of like straddle it, and squat over it, and so that's why it's so nice to wear not shorts.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate choice.
Yeah, so talk about cultural misunderstanding there. I would be worried about like my pee stream, right? Like I would be worried about hitting the person in front of me.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Clancy.
Yeah, that was super, super funny.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the squatting bathrooms that were frequent in Korea, and I never used one because I was too scared.
Yeah, they're everywhere in China.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny because now, like, when I walk into a public restroom and it's not a squatty toilet, I'm like, ooh, it's fancy.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I think that wraps up everything that we've got for this week. Go ahead and subscribe to our podcast if you haven't already. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest. So if once a week isn't enough for you, we'll be on social media to fill the gap.
Yes, exactly. With lots of interesting language and cultural facts. And please leave us a review. People are much more prone to find us if we have more reviews on iTunes. I know it's kind of a pain to go to iTunes and type it in, but it really helps us out and gets the word out there. And so when we have more reviews, we get more visibility on iTunes, and then more people will listen.
Yes, please.
Yes. And if you like it, please tell your friends too.
Yeah.
And we also really like to write about our experiences living and traveling abroad. So you can subscribe to our blog from our website as well.
Yeah. Which is just languagenerdsdoearth.com. And please send us your Lost in Translation story. You can send us a voice memo at languagenerdsdoearth@gmail.com, or you can type in a contact form and send it to us that way. Either way, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed it.